he was gonna call, is he gonna call in? We need a cell phone for
I
him.
sent a Teams link just because I knew that when he said he couldn't be available until 10:30 our time, I figured that means that he wasn't making the trip. So I did send the Teams link just to be safe.
I think a lot of it's gonna be him
Okay.
on this.
Sorry, we're running a little late. My fault. We're having the town of Lynnville Town Council special meeting, May 15th, 2025. And we call it the 2026. I just read what they write.
I know. Okay.
And we're gonna call a meeting to order now at 10:11. 2026.
Oh. Okay, got it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh. Thank you all. Just trying to talk to you. Brian Cook. Present. Andy Bogan. Clint Denton. Michael May. Chris Wisher. Lori Stokas.
Here.
Rachel Titzer.
Present.
Doris Horn.
Present.
Dave Goldenberg. Present. We have a quorum. The main business today is trying to get ahead of this sewer ban and trying to figure out where we are and what the next steps are and what needs to take place. We've got Aaron from Commonwealth here. We will have Steve, our consultant, calling in probably about 10:30, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
So, you know, he'll come in on this conversation here in 15 minutes. Or we may call him here in a minute and see if we can catch him early. Aaron, you want to take the lead?
Yeah, so obviously, I think at the prior meeting or 2 meetings ago, an ordinance was passed to allow for the adoption of a ban. So now next steps is getting that ban in place. So a ban is a bond anticipated note. What a ban does is it will allow for some supplemental funding for the town to acquire in order to allow for, you know, depending on what the town elects to include within that ban, but it's typically for design, field work, permitting, all the way through the bidding process is pretty typical for a ban. So a ban's usually like a short-term financing that is utilized to pay for those, because usually those are costly, and a lot of the times there may not be funds available, enough funds available to pay for all those upfront costs in order to get the project going. So
It's temporary financing. It also allows you to borrow the money on a temporary basis to pay those fees and get things moving, and not before you're prepared to borrow the full amount and start paying interest on the full amount. So you do a temporary financing so that you can get the engineering done. And then when that's done and then you have a project, then you do a bond, and that bond will pay the ban off, right?
Yeah, so that ban gets you basically, well, typically all the way through the bidding process, because until you know what the dollar amount, what the project is being designed, and you actually publicly bid, publicly open, publicly award that project, you don't actually know what the actual dollar amount is. So that ban or the short-term financing piece could then be rolled into the long-term finance.
It's usually interest only. Sometimes you don't make payments on it, right? Or you just, the interest accrues and you pay it off at the end. But that's how that is. It's basically, so I think you want to be careful what you include Because you don't want to pay interest on things that you can cover with cash for the time being until you do the bond, but that's what we want to talk about, I guess.
So, to date, there has been some preliminary work done. Obviously, there was a PER completed as well as an asset management plan. Those two pieces were required to get submitted to SRF. We submitted to SRF, so State Revolving Fund, Indiana Finance Authority, in 2025, in April 1st of 2025. It was then resubmitted. There was not, the town of Lynnville was not within the fundable range technically. So we then resubmitted back for April 1st, 2026 as well. PPL for SRF comes out here. The early draft will come out here within the next couple of weeks to see where funding shapes out. From an SRF standpoint, it's usually June, July, give or take. If you guys score well on that PPL, then usually you will look to get some sort of funding package in August, September, October timeframe. And then at that point there's usually a 30-day period for the town to then say, yes, we will move forward with SRF funding. If you do, then basically you have to have the project completely bid, open, and awarded by in the timing of typically Marchish. So that's their fourth quarter. So that's one funding option. So one thing that's key for this ban to get the ban in place is to hit those milestone dates, because if you don't get funding until September, for example, you don't know what the funding package is and you decide to move forward at that point, then you're talking from September to November, the design has to be completed. And you're still in that same process where you don't get the money from SRF. Whenever you get your funding package, you still need the funds to cover the upfront cost in order to get the project designed, bid, open. So, things that have been spent to date would include those PERs and the amps, as well as some field work that was done. Smoke testing was performed last August, September. There was smoke testing performed, I think, on 99, if 95 to 99% of the town was smoke tested to confirm defects. That was used to verify scope of work needed for one piece of the wastewater improvements project. So that wastewater improvements projects includes basically three key pieces. One being the main lift station there at Cherry and 68. The other one, Church and 68, sorry. The other one was the Valley, electrical upgrades, getting that station back in order. That's been a sore thumb for the town for many, many years. And then with that, the main lift station at Church and 68 was getting a new interceptor and getting the station to a better location, so it's easier to service, easier to maintain, as well as getting it to a proper depth to not have surcharge throughout the system. And then the third piece of that was some I&I correction. Basically, the smoke testing kind of crossed off the need from a bunch of I&I correction throughout the collection system. Most of the issues there were, I think, 5 issues within what we.
There's 5 broken lines, 32 broken cleanouts.
Yeah, so what would be considered, town-owned assets. So basically, I think there was 1 or 2 broken sewer mains. There was 1 or 2 bad castings and 1 bad manhole boot, I think, in some capacity. Down here on. Yeah. So the scope of work from the I&I kind of went down a little bit based off of that. So the smoke testing was good. It also there was a smoke testing report given to the town to identify what we would consider to be the private issues. So the broken cleanouts, cross connections, etc. So
are we gonna make our dates?
yeah, I mean, as soon as the band's in place, I'll just talk. I don't want to go down the avenue with Steve here, but Steve can kind of catch everything back up. So from a funding standpoint, we're at SRF, right? Waiting to see if we get funded there. There's also a funding package called Rural Water that we've spoken on in the past. it has similar terms to RD, uh, from, time. It's, I think, 35 years, if I remember correctly. Um, and then there's other funding options. We didn't end up going into RD. Like, we could get submitted RD for funding as well. There's probably some other ones that we could probably discuss if needed, but the thought process is what we left it as, see if we get funding from SRF. If not, we have the rural water funds. Rural water is a 35-year. They have similar rates to what you guys would get from an SRF standpoint.
Said we could probably get money on Mead Valley for the PDS and stuff with the electric.
Yeah.
And I was up there yesterday.
Yeah.
What'd you say, Brian?
The Rural Alliance, with
Uh-huh.
the rural, he told us that we would probably qualify to help with the electrical at Mead Valley because we're gonna be putting PDS and stuff in there, which saves energy.
Yeah, so there's like SRF has what they call a green project reserve, which is energy efficient, limiting impacts to the environment, et cetera. So as part of that, you can show those basically your green thumbprint on there. I'm not 100% sure if rural water has something similar to that as well, but it sounds like they might.
I'll look into it.
Okay. So with the rural water is different than SRF. So SRF has, they're due every April 1st, and then they have first, second, third, fourth quarter closings, right? Rural water has similar closings. They have 4 closings a year, if I remember. 4 closings a year, and they basically happen every quarter. So there's one in January-ish, there's one in April, there's one in August, September, and there's another one in November, I think, are the 4 closing periods. There's an application process. The application process, so if that's the avenue we want to go, once we're working through the design and getting close to having an understanding when we'll be able to bid and get this project awarded, this application process, the town would work on getting that application process filled out or completed. And then that kind of puts you on their radar and queue to get funded at that point there. And then that would help us backing to an actual closing date. So like I said, if we get the ban, say we get the ban in place by middle of June, and design takes 3-4 months or so, you're looking to be able to bid late fall, just say late fall. That kind of sets up pretty good for that first quarter of 27 closing, give or take. And that would be bidding the end of 26, closing in the beginning of 27. That's probably pretty realistic. Sooner the ban's in place, sooner the project can be closed, the sooner you can look to get long-term financing.
So we're in good. I think it sounds like we're in good shape.
We're in good shape.
We'll get the band going and it won't take long, but we got to figure out what that amount is. And Steve's working on placement, but without the band, like you said, it'd be very difficult if we got approved to be timeline.
Yeah, and I
That's usual. That's normal.
Yeah, and I personally don't know the status of where Steve is at with soliciting for proposals for the band. I don't know if has started contacting friends, if he received it.
Probably needs to know.
He
I
did,
think he probably has, but he needs to know the number.
and he has the original number. And one of the discussion points that probably needs to be squared up with him before he finalizes that is, what does the town want to include in that band? So, like I mentioned, the PGR, the AMP, the smoke testing, right? Those are all phases of the project that have been paid through out of cash or capital from the town. Does the town want to include those 3 items in the band? If you'll pay interest on them for, say he does a 6-month ban that could have an extension for up to 3 years, and then you could call it after 6 months or extend it and go from there. Does the town want to pay the interest on that ban during the 6 months to then get it rolled back into long-term financing? Or is it better off include those 3 assets or those 3 activities that have been completed and just keep those and then get them reimbursed for long-term financing? So it'll get figured in for long-term financing to put the cash back in the towns.
If you don't need it for cash flow, then you'll get it when we do the bond. It's a question of whether you need the money that you've spent now for cash flow. Go ahead to borrow it to put it in the bank. Right? That's How much do you need?
And that's assuming that the town wants to include that. I don't remember how much the dollar amount was, say, just say $50,000. I don't know off the top of my head. It's like 75 or 80. 75 or so. Does the town want to include that in the long-term financing, or is it better not to include that in the overall project since you guys already accrued that cost? Does that want to get rolled over to long-term? Typically it is, it's no different like when you guys did the previous RD project, right? You guys cashed out the PER, the ER to get submitted to RD. When the RD funding came back in, the actual closing of the RD project included that PER and ER back in that point.
If those expenses are what's the source of your negative balance, because you paid that out, you might need to borrow it.
Yeah.
To put it back, to get it back to positive balance and have money for operating, and that, Steve may have some thoughts on that, but I think Lori was just showing me the negative balance. So if that's the case, and that's what that is, then I could see, doing that, but.
And all of those pieces that I mentioned, those three pieces, the smoke testing, the PER, and the AMP, are all cost directly tied to the project. So getting them included, if you were to use SRF, would or should not be a problem. It's not like you're trying to add something you did completely separate from the project, or something that was done on the water into the sewer side. It's all things that were done as part of the application process and as part of the wastewater project. So there should be no hurdles in order to get that included in the funding.
You talked about Mead Valley and changing those out, which we've talked about the cost to bring three-phase in there. Is that part of it also?
Yeah, that would be included in the Mead Valley project. So the thought process would be, just talking from a scope of work on the design and construction side for Mead Valley, that would include getting three-phase across the road. That would be replacing the old antiquated control panel, putting VFDs in there, putting a proper alarm system, especially since it's way off site, putting an alarm system in there, whether it's Mission Cellular or whatever it is, so you can get notifications and the utility can get notifications of high levels, pump fails, high temps, etc. Right, that would all be included in that as well. We would look at pumps to confirm there's no issues with the pumps at that standpoint. I know you guys have previously had to replace those pumps.
That's the issue with that station. We do not have clean electricity.
Yes.
So even when we buy a new pump, we're not getting, manufacturer's not gonna cover that pump if it goes out. And a year later, when we should be getting 3 to 5 years off of a pump, we're lucky if we're getting one.
Yeah, the phase conversion from those are three-phase pumps, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
and you only have single phase going across the road. So instead of using newer technology now will allow for VFDs. I'm not an electrical engineer, but I know about VFDs will allow from single phase to three-phase conversion. VFDs will, right? That's a lot better upgrade from single to three-phase. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better. Currently, they use a series of capacitors to get that conversion from single to three-phase, which is a lot dirtier power, and pumps will burn up more.
And Brian, the cost of these pumps, because I don't recall, we've purchased so many.
We're basically, it's $8,000 for the pump. Time it's pulled and replaced, it's about $10,000 per pump.
Plus $9,000. Closer to 13.
So, as part of that design, as part of doing those upgrades, I would want to make sure that, we could run, not to get super technical, but we could run the required performance of the pump based off of how the system operates. So head flows and everything. I would want to run that and make sure that the pumps are going to operate correctly to not wear and tear the pumps. If you
want to make sure we don't pick the wrong pump for the head that it's going to push.
I know they're newer pumps, but I wouldn't want to just upgrade the electrical and still have pumps that are operating left or right of the curve that could either A, be limiting the capacity of the station, which could still cause surcharge in the station, and or B, damage the pumps from cavitation, whatever it may be.
One new pump and the other pump is right at a year old. So it's about every year we're putting one in, the next year we'll be replacing the other one.
So that would be,
we're getting about 1 year out of a pump is what we're getting.
and you should be getting on those size pumps, you should be getting at least 5 years with minimal maintenance. I mean, you may have a seal that needs to get repaired. May pull them to get seals checked or something, but you know, replacing pumps every year that's like a grip pump style super wear and tear. And that's not that nasty out there. Really shouldn't be seeing wear and tear like that. And from my understanding, the majority of the pumps burning up, it's not bad seals. It's not bad impellers. It's the pumps are literally burning up, which would be on the electrical side.
Okay. You want to, is Steve supposed to call into you or are you calling into him?
Well, I say it seems like he accepted it, so I would assume he would have accepted it and joined. I don't see where he has joined, but
You send it to him.
you sure?
No, I got it.
Yeah, he accepted as well.
Just let him know we're ready whenever he wants to come on.
The text and tell him that we're ready. Go ahead.
Any other work that we need to be doing towards this at this point that we haven't started yet?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we did all that good work in August, September to try to verify what the project scope is. I mean, getting the design done is the next step. The permitting, there'll be an IDM permit, there'll be an NDOT permit, getting stations designed. Um, you know, public bidding will be required to be over $5,000 or 150, whatever that threshold is. So it'll have to be publicly bid, public awarded, just like we've done on 95% of the projects for the town. But all that would be covered as part of that ban process.
The three-phase, since I don't know
Now,
how
we started the bid with, Kelly Campbell. We got the bid from him to get it over to that box. But we're still waiting for the number from Center Point.
Yeah, because Kelly's gonna provide the conduit to the pole and the stub up, and the wire is actually gonna be part
Yeah,
of
to get it to the box.
the center point says they can't give us a hard number. They give us an approximate number.
That's pretty typical. So a lot of the times what we do on our projects, because Centerpoint, they give you, it's typically $20,000, and then they get on site and they say it was actually 18, it was actually 22. So we typically include that coordination requirement, just like it's urgent to be done between the contractor and Centerpoint at that point. So then it takes that liability off of
When do they have to send us a final bill on that to get it included in this? Does that matter? Or
no, it does not matter.
just long we have a number that we comfortable with going with.
Yeah, I would delegate that to the contractor. So I would tell the contractor in the drawings to say they need three-phase power. Here's the amps you need. Here's the voltage, 480, three-phase. Here's the amps. Then at that point there, Centerpoint would say, okay, we need a new transformer. We'll provide the wire. The electrical contractor will provide the conduit and the raceway from the pole to where the meter base is going to set. Duke then sets a new meter base. Duke sets a new CT cabinet. All of that work is the responsibility of the contractor being ordered. You can do it ahead of time. The problem is if you're going to have a meter charge, they're going to want to set your meter and set your CT cabinet. You're probably going to end up paying minimum usage on a meter up until it's being used, to be honest with you. And you could temporarily put in three-phase if you wanted to do it outside the project, but I just don't know if that's something. I know it's a pressing item, right?
Mhm.
And it could be pulled from the project and look to be funded in another, with it being almost like an emergency, right? I mean, we could look for funding to get it pulled from the whole project and see if there's a different project, if there's a different funds that we can go after to do Meat Valley, because it's not an emergency, but it's pretty much an emergency. We need it now. We don't really have, I mean, if you think about it, if we bid and we close in just say January of next year, that's not done until this time next year. So you're talking a year out, and you may have a pump that goes down at that point there. So it's all, and it's not uncommon to have where you get things toward the end of useful life where utilities having to kind of patch things, just limp it along until it's going to be new. It's just, I don't know if that's what Lynnville wants to take, or is it better to try to figure out some
Well, that's,
supplement funding?
that's what I talked to Terry yesterday. There could be grant money out there through them to cover that, to help us with that. So I'm gonna bring her in, kind of with the thing we're doing, bringing the three-phase over, and then her kind of, maybe she can help us with the box.
I mean, at this point, we've been limping along for how many years?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like this was a new problem. It was just something that just kept getting pushed back and pushed back, and now so.
And if that falls, if depending on how that shapes out, I mean, there is some other options that we could look to go through some funding. It would be, you're not talking a ton of money. You're not talking like this whole project here, there is some funding options that could be, shorter terms that you could get a lot easier. Straight go and pull a bond from anywhere, right, and get it done with terms and pay interest on it just to get it done. If you have to spend $8, $9, $10, $15,000 a year and it's a year out, it's worth going ahead and pulling a bond now, a separate bond for just Meat Valley, right, and getting that closed out, and the interest you're going to pay on it's going to save you for having repaired it 1.5 times over the next year.
Have we got the specs ready for that project, or do you have to do specs for it, or?
No, that's whole part of this band is all included in that.
So we're not worrying about any other costs. It's all hidden, or?
Yeah, it's
Not
all, it'll
hidden,
be
but
included
it'll
in
be
the
there.
band cost, yeah.
Like I wanna say I remember us bidding the electrical box once before. And I wanna say it was somewhere in the 26,000-27,000, what they bid just on the electric in the box. From East Valley.
Can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, you're probably gonna can you join that Teams message? The service in here is not grade A. Yeah, we're on. All right, thanks.
Not able to get on.
That he's been on, but it never showed up. There you go. You hear Steve?
I can hear you.
All right, I'm gonna set you over here on the table here next to everybody, and you'll just.
My apologies, I got on at 11 and nobody let me in, so I gotta wait about 20 minutes to do another work and, nothing happened, so I got off on another call, so I apologize if I missed you guys.
Good. No problem. We're in good shape. But Aaron's given us, his preliminaries on this.
We've talked generally, Steve, this is Chris, we've talked generally about the band, what it is. Aaron's talked about the projects. Some decisions are what to include in the band. There's some expenses that have been included. There's new design that needs to be done. So I think that's kind of where, I mean, they.
You have a little summary sheet that I distributed back in December on the $400,000, so you said you want it to be above that, and it can be anything, as long as it's for hard construction, it can't be for operation and maintenance.
I think the only thing I know that what's mainly been discussed is the prior PER and other engineering smoke testing costs that have been done in connection with this project, planning for this project specifically, that have been paid out. And Lori shows a negative balance on her utility fund, I think in part because of those expenses.
Sure, sure, yeah.
And
Yeah, if you want to,
those all are tied to the project, so
sure.
there's minimal risk of getting those not approved in the long-term financing piece of it as well.
Are they in the $400,000 number? Or is
I
that,
don't remember,
I don't think they're in the $400,000 number, but they might be.
we need to get them on?
It depends on,
I guess.
we've got, I don't know how much of the design and permitting's been done so far and been paid for, but, most of that in the 400,000 would not have currently been paid for. So yeah, we can do that and get Lori current again. That would be a good thing. And the only thing I ask for Lori is that every time she spends money that she wants out of the ban or out of, amounts of reimbursement of the ban, she needs to put an invoice for that in a folder. So when I do the final bond issue, I can show, what we spent it on. Some funding sources are particular and some are not, but it's always good to have it in a folder. So one, you can show State Board of Accounts, and two, in case I need it for the ultimate financing agency. But because Aaron was on this phone call and I wasn't, again, I apologize for that. Have him or Lori send me the additional costs and that you want. If you like the 400,000 list that I gave you, I've talked with Aaron about that before on what items need to go in, and if there are additional items, yeah, we can do that. And then on timing on the ban. We've got to have the bond ordinance adopted, and that it's adopted, and this 20-day remonstrance period has to pass, and we're pretty close to that, I'm sure. And then I can put this thing out, and it's maybe 30 days. However, I have a difficulty, and Lori's helped me out with this. I don't know where she is on it, but there's always been a question about what kind of debt we have outstanding, and we talked to your bond counsel, we talked to local counsel about that, and I've checked with SRF to make sure we don't have any SRF debt, and they've told me how we paid off the SRF debt. And rural development says we've got, and Lori's told me this, on your gateway debt report, you're only showing 2 or maybe 3 debts, and I think those are your rural development debts. But in the information I'm getting from in the last sheet I got from Lori, it looks like you might have 4 rural development debts. So I've asked rural development to send me what amortization schedule for those debts, and they say that they need a written permission from the town to do that. So I sent Lori an email and said, hey, can you email, and I think I included the RD representative on there. Can you tell them that it's okay to give me the stuff? And I don't know why they're doing that. The other RD representatives have not had a problem with that, but they are. But I haven't got it yet from RD, and I want to make sure that when I sell this thing, that I'm representing the debt outstanding, because these finance agents are a little particular about that. That we're showing them all the debt that's outstanding when we're incurring additional debt. So once Lori can do that, and I get the information from RD, we can move forward pretty quickly. I've got a go-to bank that I always go to for these bans. I've got a new bank that looks like they may be lower than market for interest rates. And then I want to talk to your bank. I always like to give the town's bank a chance at holding the ban since it's local. And then we'll get all the information together, and I'll let you guys know what interest rates are, and you can decide who it is you want to choose out of the 3 to go forward with.
Steve, I pulled up your summary that we sent off back in December, and it did include the PER, the AMP, and the smoke testing in that band summary. That's the next question would be, Steve, we can try to figure out what the town wants to include or not include in the ban. The next question would probably be, the term. So, a 6 month with, the potential to expand or extend it to 2 years. Do we do a year? And I'm assuming if they call it early, then there's a penalty to call early. You know, depending on the funding wise. So if we are successful with SRF, you're looking at everything has to be closed out by Marchish, give or take, typically. So a 1 year ban at that point there would potentially require a penalty to call it early, right? If we did rule,
I'll set it up so when I talk to these people about what the call date, what the first call date is, so that there's no penalty involved on calling it early. And it's a little worse than having a penalty call. Sometimes you just can't do it. I mean, some banks are flexible and a lot of them are not. So, but when we structure the ban, when I structure the ban, we'll do the term and we'll do the first call. And I always try to make they usually like to have at least 6 months. I've got a couple banks that are flexible. The one that's my standard go-to, I'm pretty flexible with. They can do a lot. They can, but I'll set that call up. So if we're looking at the that call date up uh, to work with that on term though, if we do a 12-month term, which is kind of standard, sometimes I get a better rate for going 11 months rather than 12. And then in the last couple of years, I've done better on a 2 year term than a 1 year term because we're in this interest rate inversion thing, which is just weird, means that short-term interest rates are higher than long-term interest rates, and I've only seen that twice in my career, but we're kind of there now. So I'm interested to see what I'm going to get on a short-term rate, and I'll come back and tell the town about that. So as long as we've got a call date, which means we can call them at no penalty on the time frame we want, it never hurts to go longer, except that generally interest rates are longer for 2 years than 1 year, except in this recent interest rate inversion period where it's been a little bit different. So I'll look at all that, but if we're looking at SRF, then we'll get our offer from the SRF in July, and then we'll pick a closing quarter, and that will depend on whether we're in their pool program or in their traditional program. And we'd like to be in their traditional program, but we would our user fees are high enough that even if we're in the pool program, we may get a better than market rate interest rate. And I'm saying that because I just got a 0% interest rate in their pool program, which they don't generally do for me. I can get that in their traditional program, but not their pool program. But they gave me a 0% on their pool program last week, actually. So I was really happy to see that. So SRF goes 35 years, but I don't know when, Aaron, you're thinking about a closing date with SRF if we go forward with SRF. Would that be?
yeah, so probably, I mean, looking at the ban, if the ban gets in place in sometime in June-ish, right? Design would probably be 3 to 4 months probably, and then you're looking at another month of worth of bidding. And then you're also looking at, you know, a 60-day hold period. So you're looking at probably about 6 months. So, I mean, I would be looking at probably to close out on what they would consider their fourth quarter for SRF.
Okay, and you know the SRF program very well, but you also know that the fourth quarter is what they call their bypass period. And we have to get permission to close in the fourth quarter, like to close everything in the first three, but you know, doesn't mean we're not going to get it, but it's just that it's hard to close a loan in the fourth quarter because so many people want to close fourth quarter loans, and the SRF limit is 20 loans, including their pool program loans, calendar quarter. But yeah, that's what's going to take. That's what's going to take.
Yeah, I forgot that they changed their closing dates as well. So I guess technically that would be that third quarter there for like that February
Okay.
close. It's
Okay.
I forgot fourth quarter now was like closing in June. It's like overlap half the fiscal year this year. So I
Okay.
misspoke.
Okay, yes, the second or third quarter. Again, we have to ask permission for the SRF on which calendar quarter we're gonna go into, because when they're filled up, they move us over to the next one.
Their schedule would, their schedule would support that third. It would be what used to be that fourth, that February, March closing date. That schedule,
Okay.
you know, since we already submitted, it's basically back in there, right? We put it back
Okay.
in the scoring criteria. So it would fall in line with that third quarter.
Okay.
And then,
So, if I do a 12-month, we issue in June, which would get us to June, again, the S quarter, ends in June 30. You would want me to do 13 months? Because, and so we'll pay it back by June 30th, because the SRF fiscal year closes June 30th, and they don't carry over any financing officers from one financing year to the next financing year. So if I do June 30th as the term, you know, we'll close before June 30th, which is probably 13 months, then, or 12 months and change, then we'll certainly encompass anything we can do with the SRF. And then I can do a call within 6 months. So, December, you know, we can do like a December 1st call date, and it doesn't sound like you're ever gonna, you're in January 1st call date. It doesn't sound like we'd ever need to call the band before January 1st, would it?
Right.
Does that sound good?
yeah, and Steve, I think that would fall in line in the event that SRF isn't necessarily successful, is if we took the avenue of rural water as well. You know, they've got their quarter closings. I think they're February, June, September, November, or whatever they are. That same call would probably fall. I guess what I'm saying, likely whatever out of those two funding packages we're looking at, that call period would probably fall within there.
So yeah, we rural development,
So,
you know,
the rural water.
oh, the rural water. Okay,
Yeah,
they do. I'm sorry.
was
The rural
Kentucky
water
rural water.
financing. Right. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So fine. Yeah, I just closed the loan with them at the end of well, with your firm. Yeah, at the end of March,
Right.
and got a 3.4 interest, 4.3 interest rate on a 21-year loan term, and I was pretty happy to get it. So that's an easy program to go through, and they're ones that, like the SRF will look at everything, and I'll have to get a lot of information from Lori, but the rural water program doesn't really. Nice program to go through.
Do we build in any kind of extension option into that 1 year in case we don't get funded, or we have an issue and we got to go long and we get to the end, or is that something you just deal with at the time and find that?
We can two answers. One, rural water has it's a pool program, and they do a quarterly, calendar quarter loan, and I can get into their loan at any time, giving them like 60 days notice. We can get in their loan. But on the ban, I can always roll it over, but there's sometimes a fee to roll it over, and it might only be $4,000 or $5,000. But I like to be tight with your money. I don't like to spend money if we don't
I'm
need
just
to.
looking at it as a fail safe.
Yeah, yeah,
We're
bands have
not
a-
ready to close on something permanent.
Yeah,
I don't.
bands have a 60-month statutory limit in Indiana, and I don't usually go 60 months because I pay a higher interest rate on 5 years than I generally do. But we can always roll it over, and these guys that I generally use, like my go-to guys for bands, are they're pretty flexible with that. You know, I might pay $4,000 for a picture sample fee to look over the docs again, and that would be it. And then you might pay your attorneys, your bond counsel, a little bit more to roll it over again. So we'd like to avoid that if we can. We always have that option.
Yeah, it's just a fail safe. I don't think I don't,
Yeah.
based on what you're saying between SRF, rural water, or whatever, we probably won't need it, but you just, it's just as long as we have options at the end, if we're not prepared to do permanent financing in that moment.
Yeah.
The
Now, the other thing I want to mention to you is that the state revolving loan fund has changed in the last year, and that it used to be that they had their pool program for people that were on the project priority list and were on the project priority list. that could not get into their traditional program. And the traditional program was only for disadvantaged communities that the high scoring environmental projects. And then they just put you in the pool program. Starting last year, they started limiting the amount of people going in the pool program. And that's why I started going to this rural water finance agency as a backup. So I just want, we'd like the SRF because it's a below market interest rate and it's a longer long term. I only get 30 years with the rural water finance agency and get 35 years with the SRF. So everything's better about the SRF, and certainly we have the ability to get sub-market interest rates like down to 0% and sometimes some grant money if you're a disadvantaged community. So our main focus is going to be trying to get in the SRF, but if we don't, our cover is going to be going through the rural water finance agency.
Yeah, in Steve, full transparency, the 35-year for SRF, we need to look at that because we may not show
May not be the useful life.
our useful life would probably be, it'd be something we'd have to look at, and I could try to look at that as well, but it'd be flirting with it because we don't have quite the pipeline work that we originally envisioned after doing the smoke testing. So I would have to try to look at that and see if we could get it to the 35 from useful life. It may fall under that 20.
We can go, yeah, we can get to 20. 20 is the standard. I've never seen an SRF loan go less than 20. And then you've got the apps going 25, 30, and 35 on extended loan terms. If the useful life, as you say, can be shown to be at least the loan term. We don't like to lend you money for 35 years on 5-year property. It seems to make a lot of sense. So yeah, that's something we look. We've got time. When we want to see if we can get in the program first, and again, we'll find that out in July. And what generally happens is they come out with their and again, just take a step backwards. The state revolving loan fund is on a fiscal year that starts July 1st and goes to June 30. And so and then they close 20 loans every calendar quarter in that. And we put applications in, we put an application back in April 1st, and actually before that, I think. And they will rank and score that, and they will show that ranking and scoring to us in July when they issue their project priority list, which is a ranking and scoring of all projects that are on that applied for funding this fiscal year. And they start off with the highest scoring ones, which is number one. And they're an environmental program, and they're scored according to environmental need. So they're going to put all their traditional money first into the highest scoring environmental projects. And then at some point they draw a line, and that is what they call the fundable range. Everything above that's the fundable range. And then it gets interesting because when they'll contact all the communities in the fundable range, and they will say, hey, can you close before June 30th next year? And most people say yes, and some people say no. Now, when some people say no, it opens up more funding for the SRF for the people below the fundable range, and they'll start to make phone calls to make offers to see if anyone wants to come into the traditional program and close. And then if you don't make it in the traditional program, then what we do is we say, hey, can we get in your pool program? And they'll ask what calendar quarter, and we'll tell them what calendar quarter. And then they'll either tell us whether they can handle us in their pool program or not. So we'll find a lot of information the first 2 weeks of July. And generally they contact the financial advisor, me, and let me know what the offer is, and let me contact the client. And the other kind of strange thing about the SRF is very writing. So it's mostly phone conversations and emails, and that makes some people very nervous. But I've never heard the SRF give me a verbal offer that they have not followed through with. And it's like in the last 20 years, they've always done what they say they're going to do. So, but that's probably how it's going to shake out.
From a next step, Steve, we need to confirm, I guess, that everything that was in that band sheet that we sent in December, January timeframe, confirm that's what the town wants to move forward with. lock in what that cost is. Once that's done, then you can finalize reaching out to the banks and getting your proposals in from everybody for then eventually deciding, the town can decide, which bank they want to go for the ban and close, correct?
Yeah, one preliminary step, and that would be that we need to make sure that we get RD's list of debt outstanding, so we can report the correct amount of debt outstanding. And that just is, at this point, just whenever they get back, when Lori gets back to them and says, hey, give Steve the information, and they'll get it to me, and then and that shouldn't take any time at all, and then I'll start contacting the banks. Already got the term sheet together. The term sheet is a requirement of the municipal rulemaking board that any bank that's looking at issuing a debt has to have a term sheet so they can do their due diligence. And so we've got that. I'll send that to them, and then that'll all take about 2 weeks, and then it'll take 2 weeks to set a closing up with the attorneys, and then the money's going to come into. It'll be wired to a bank account and then the town's bank account. And I've got to talk to Laura about what account she wants to put it into. If there is probably have a separate bank account for water and sewer. But certainly we'd get into your bank, and then we would and then we would Lori'd account for it on her books as either a separate fund, probably a construction fund, and so we can keep track of the state board of accounts, and then she just keeps that little manila folder with everything that she's paying out of that. So when we have to pay it back, the financing agencies, if they're concerned about it, will be able to see that the things we spent the money on are things that they can reimburse us for. Yeah, but we're close. We're close right now. And I apologize for the hiccup with rural development. It's just there's a little bit of difference with your debt report on Gateway than what I'm seeing on the information Lori's sending me and what RD's sending me. So I just need to figure that out. That's all.
So I think Lori has your email, so she can get that done. And then, so we just really need to figure out what that amount is that we want the ban amount to be.
And once I get the information from RD, that's my only hiccup at this point. I'll get this moving very quickly. The thing I want to just confirm is right now, tentatively, we're looking at $400,000. And if you want to do more than that, just let me know. And then we've got the 13-month term, or really to June 30th of 2027. And then I'll have a 6-month call, which will be, we can call it no penalty at January 1st and after, if that sounds good.
$400 cover.
Yeah,
And we should just look in to make sure
it's less than that. It's just ballpark.
okay. So that covers the expenses
So what I would
we
do,
had outstanding or that we paid
Yeah.
plus potential engineering.
And it's better to be a little high than a little low.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
yeah, because, if we're a little high, then we got money and we just pay it back. And if we're a little low, it just means we got to take money out of Lori's funds again, and that may be difficult for her to do. So it's better to be a little bit high than a little bit low.
We just pay on what we draw interest wise, or do we pay for the whole?
Actually, this is the other thing, and it's a good question. It's going to be we'll get a wire payment of the full amount.
Yeah.
And so we'll talk to Lori about where she wants to invest it. I'd certainly recommend Trust Indiana. If you don't already have a Trust Indiana account, that Trust Indiana account is about, what is it now? Close to 4% on interest, and you get the money out in 24 hours. So, it's just, and it's recommended by the state treasurer as an investment avenue for political subdivisions in Indiana. And it's the highest interest rate I can see for short term money. But that'd be a good place to put it, just a Trust Indiana account, and then we would earn interest on the money that we haven't spent, and then we just draw it down, and but the interest from Trust Indiana is probably going to be pretty close to the interest that we're going to get on the ban itself. So we'll be earning on the unspent funds at a level that's going to be close to what we're paying for the money itself.
there a process to go through to open up with Indiana Trust? I know we talked about them at one time, but I don't think we've ever followed through with using them.
I can get, Lori contact information, just give you a call. I don't think there's any cost to set it up. I've been recommending this for about 2 years now to all my clients, and everybody that's gone through it is very, very happy with the money. The only thing that, and Lori saw it's really online. So, it's like an online bank account and you just draw the money out when you need it and it's going forever when you need it. But that's purely a local decision. I just like the interest rate and that the money can, it's not like a CD where it's got to be 30 days or 6 months or a year or 2 years. And it's a little bit easier to me and get a better interest rate than the money market as well. But that's between you and Lori on what you want to do with your money. But it's my recommendation, and Lori could also talk to other clerk treasurers that have used it, and Trust Indiana would give names of people that had. If you want to talk to somebody to see what their experience has been with that. But that'd be one thing you could do. The other thing is you could savings accounts, checking accounts don't pay any interest. Savings accounts pay less than 1%. So to be able to get 3 or 4% on short-term money is really a good deal for the town, and it offsets the interest cost that you have to pay on the bond anticipation. But Lori may, and your local bank may have a better offer that I'm not familiar with, and she could talk to your local bank as well.
We already did all the research on it.
You good with that?
Yeah. We've already done all the research, or I've already done all the research back, talked to other people. I'm good with that.
Okay, then that's certainly a recommendation, because you could, I haven't seen a local bank that's offering an interest rate in short-term money that's near what West Indiana is doing. So, that would certainly be my recommendation if you're comfortable with it. And if you need help getting that set up or talking to them, then let me know, and I'll do what I can to help you with that too, Laura.
Anything else? We've got the.
If I don't hear back from you, I'll just do the 400,000 and the 13-month until June 30th on the term with a 6-month call at no penalty. If that sounds good.
Thank
Sounds
you.
good. Aaron
Thank
says
you,
it
Steve.
sounds good. You say it sounds good.
Good.
I think we got some marching orders maybe now, and we can start pulling these things together.
We get the RD information. I think once Lori has a chance to respond to that email, we'll hopefully get that. And then I think we're ready to get it moving.
And it's something here. It says review revenue versus expenditures. He's already kind of talked about all that, right?
Right.
Okay.
I think that was probably,
That
there was
was
some,
it.
we had some talk about eyeballing past revenues before the rate increase to current revenues after the rate increase to see if we think we're getting, I mean, that's not necessarily critical to the ban itself.
Before we close on the final financing, which may be, sometime first or second quarter of next year, I'll have to do an updated rate study because the old rate I did for you before is has a test year that's too old for the SRF to accept. They'll want to see something within 12 months. So I'll probably use calendar year in 2026 to close on the final financing, and there, you'll have plenty of opportunity of Lori and the council to give us input and analysis on what our current revenues and expenses are.
Yeah, and I think in the meantime, probably wouldn't hurt just to kind of eyeball it. And if there's some issue, with the whether the rates are input right, if there's some issue, it'd be good to identify it now. I mean, I don't know if anybody thinks there's an issue, but I think we want to make sure that that our revenues are as expected as we thought, and if they're not, is that a question What's the factor there?
I think in the end, it just really helps, once we get the project under design and we confirm what the scope of work is, it just helps define project cost.
Yeah.
In the end.
So we can do that.
Okay. Anything else?
Straight increase. Full on 5.
She-
And these reports I did back in 2023, I think it was. No, let me check.
Have it by month or the.
No, this is just the annual. But this one is year to date. Oh, not that one. Go behind it. That's year to date, and you have that in your packet.
And that one number you got for revenue year to date for residential. That's not including what we've taken out and paid for expenses, right? That is actual revenue.
Yeah,
It's not a balance.
no, these.
So if we take that and multiply it by 3, that should give us kind of a projection for the year, since that's 4 months, third of the year. Does that make sense?
They know what you're saying, and yes.
Yeah.
Saying,
Is there a reason the water hauler has only taken in $5.50 year to date?
maybe we haven't done quarters, I don't know. I've got quarters on my desk right now. This year. They're probably in the miscellaneous. I just made that, line item. I'll have to go in, probably in the miscellaneous. Yeah.
Obviously, more than $5.50 has gone out.
Yeah, those,
So-
that's just the guy that comes, he's got an account with us, that's what he pays.
But the intent of that audit would basically just be able to compare revenue and expenses from last year to increase to current. There, we can take out, well, like the pump that you guys spent 15 grand on or whatever. You can take large capital expenses that shouldn't be a yearly expense out. And confront those expenses over the same period of time in 2 different years. So prior increase, post increase, and confirm that to figure out revenue available. And why I said it helps the total project. Revenue available we've had, it helps offset the need for funding at that point.
Okay, again, thank you, Steve. You're now off the hook. You can go do whatever you want to do.
Okay, glad to be here. Just two last things. One, I'm gonna target mid-June to have this thing issued unless I hear differently from you. So we'll work on as quickly as we can to get the money to you. And Lori, when we close the money, and I'll be talking to you before that on what bank account's gonna go into, what it's gonna do. But you're gonna reimburse yourself, and we'll talk about this later too, or the sewage account for money that's already been spent, and that will just go from if we're putting the money in the construction account back in the account that you paid it out of, and if you've got negative balances, that would be a good thing to get those balances back up to positive values. So, well, we can talk about that later. Just that would be the process, and we can talk about where you're going to put the money, and then how you're going to account for it as we get closer to the date.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah, sounds good to me. No one else is shaking their head, so sounds good to them. So again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
Glad to be here. Good talking to everybody. Everybody have a good weekend.
Okay, Brian Cook, you got anything you want to add to this meeting? No other issues anywhere that we have to worry about
Just,
in adding
the other
this
thing is
funding.
The meeting yesterday, had you guys sign that with Ace Disposal to move forward with that.
Okay.
So we can go ahead and get that started, get the flow pump stuff going.
Okay. Chris, anything you need to say? Lori, anything you need to say? Rachel,
No.
Doris,
No.
David? Well, I hate going in without saying anything, but no. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned at 11:15.